Today on Between the Lines, Ray Manzarek. Along with his best friend Jim Morrison, they were the co-founders of the legendary rock and roll group The Doors. I'm Barry Kibrick. In Ray's book, The Poet in Exile, we'll learn if the lead singer of America's most notorious rock and roll band was really buried in Paris, or was it just an elaborate hoax to break on through to the other side?
I'm a writer today because I was a reader when I was 11 years old. And it was...
You do not need to prove your state of happiness to anybody.
Most of these speeches were as much as a month in preparation.
The characters, the heroes in this book, are seekers of truth in a story that involves a lot of corruption.
You get a chance to really talk about what's real and it's the purpose.
For years, rumors about the death of Jim Morrison created a mythology that to this day still surrounds The Doors. Was his death just a hoax? And if so, why? With the poet in exile, his best friend and co-founder of The Doors, Ray Manzarek, travels to a remote island in the Indian Ocean where he fulfills a vow of friendship and adds an astonishing, unexpected chapter to the legend of The Doors. Ray, as always, welcome back and a pleasure to have you here. This time, though, I hinted a little bit, you faked me out. When it came to Light My Fire, that was, I don't want to say an obvious book, but it was a factual book. It was easy to follow through. Autobiography.
This is a novel.
This is a novel, but it's a novel with a twist, because what you did in Light My Fire, you do the same thing here to me. You bring the reader right behind your shoulder. So when you're reading it, you get a sense, it's a very different feel. And even though this is fiction, when I'm done, I'm still not certain that this is fiction. And I'm going to start right off the bat is,
Go ahead.
You have to ask, because what's going on here is, and the world's kind of familiar with what everyone thought was the hoax of Jim Morrison's death, because everyone thought, no, it was a closed casket, it was all of this.
Exactly.
You now take that concept and you go to an island in the Indian Ocean, and you meet Jay, Joseph now Phoenix.
Right.
And you're, by the way, Roy, trying to fake us out, not Ray. And I'm through with the book, and I'm still not certain, did you or did you not? Because it is written as if you had to have.
Well, it seems that way. Thank you. Well, that's a compliment, because it's a work of fiction. Unfortunately, James Douglas Morrison entered the ether, leapt upwards into the loam, as Jim said once, exited the planet on July 3rd, 1971. And there's just been so many rumors and stories that I thought, you know what, I'm going to give them, everybody's saying to me, he's not dead, he's not dead, he's not dead. Tell us the truth, Ray. All right, I'm going to tell you the truth, but it's a work of fiction. He's not dead. Now, even more important is what happens to him. That's
well, but you know
for me,
something, you just said something, and I don't know if it's Freudian or not, but you said he's not dead. And that is what's kind of interesting, because he's not dead.
Yeah.
I know that sounds strange. Whether he's physically left the planet into the loam, he's not dead. And his words, in fact, you say something about, the book is called Poet in Exile. And as you indicate, we are all in exile. We are all searching, and this book is a continuation of that search. And a man who's left so much behind never really does die.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the ancient Egyptians felt that if you say a person's name, that person is still alive. So if I say the pharaoh Akhenaten, the sun-worshipping pharaoh who may have started monotheism, and Freud wrote the book Moses and Monotheism about Akhenaten. He's still with us. He's still alive. Jim Morrison, you hear him singing on the radio somewhere in America once a day. You know, somewhere in Los Angeles, somewhere in America, once a day in every city, Jim Morrison is singing a song. So he's still with us. You know, he's still with me, I got to tell you.
And when you read this book, it's the spirit that is with us, and that's what I want to get into, because I remember when I had you on for Light My Fire, there was a scene in Venice where you guys were carrying on these bars, and you were swinging. And I remember saying to you the words, it reminds me of the song It Has the Monkey in Me, because you were really feeling back to that primordial stage while you were doing this thing. And when I come back into this book, again, that term comes up a few times, because the monkey brain. And it is the thing that Jay, you, all of us, is trying to quiet. And in a sense, he quiets it when his death is achieved because he's that 3 a.m. in the morning guy. He can't quiet that monkey brain. And you say, even when that moment comes, you say, the blood in my own brain pan was just swishing around.
Yeah.
And is that not what we're going for, that sense of peace?
Well, that's what life is all about. Life is all about the ultimately finding peace within yourself and finding your peace on the planet. That's what the poet does. What you do is you become, you know, the Indians say the Kundalini power. It rises up the spine into the top of the head, and you just blow out of the top of your head, and you find ultimately your oneness with everything. That's what it's all about. It's all about the state of oneness.
You talk about it in the book. You talk all the way from the Hebrew prayers of the Lord is one, I am, to Jesus saying, I and the Father, we are one. That is this search. Einstein did it scientifically in the search for the unified field theory, looking for this oneness that is at the essence of it all.
Well, for me, the energy, God, if you will, or the energy, is we are the energy because we are the creation of the energy. We are God. God is us. My mind is a little distillation, as yours is, of the great universal energy, the great mind that is God. That's what the poet finally discovers. It's an actual experience that you can have. That's the point of it. You can talk about it philosophically, but you have to experience it. And the experience is like one of bliss and joy, you know. The poet is running down the hill, down to the Ganges River, and just opening yourself up. You know, you're on the beach in the summertime. You're lying in the park under a tree. You're on the side of a river, and you just feel, God, this feels good. That's what it's all about, that great feeling. God, it's good to be alive. You know, you have that we all have that. You just expand on that and carry that for the rest of your life.
And that's what he's questing. That's what the poet is questing.
That's
and
what he's trying to
that's what
find.
you're discovering as, and it has this, what is it, Carlos Castaneda's, you mentioned some of this kind of, and I even thought of it a little bit as, I remember having Socrates Cafe, the author, and it's going to escape my mind for a second, but it's all about Plato, who was really Socrates in the sense, because Socrates didn't write anything, Plato was the one writing it down. And I always think of you as Plato to Morrison's Socrates, because you're the one really writing it down. That's why I even thought the poet in exile was you at first. And it wasn't. You were writing about Jim.
He's the poet. We call Jim's the poet. You know, I'm the keyboard player, and I'm not the poet. I'm the literalist. I'm the Apollonian. Cut, put it all together into word after word after word after word, into a sentence, into a paragraph, into a page, into a chapter. You know, whereas Jim was like picking something from here and something from there and something from there and putting them in the most amazing combinations. But without either one of us, I think without the two of us working off of each other, well, you know, the Doors probably never would have happened.
Well, you know, it's funny because my wife and my son, we were talking a little bit, and my wife even said, you know, at first it was very hard for her to listen to Doors music because it made her depressed. Ooh. And the reason, and it's very funny because even Jim as he's talking, or Jay as he's talking in this, it was your haunting organ, that hauntingness of it. But at the same time, as he says, at the end of it, there's always that light, that little speckle of light that then brings, and that's when people start getting into it, they see just that perfect yin and yang, that perfect give and take, and that's what you even talk about. The two of you guys were the poet and the literalist, the one who puts it all in there.
The Dionysian madman and the Apollonian order man. I mean, it was my job to play the keyboards, to keep the whole thing in order, and Jim's job to stand up there in front of 20,000 people as the front man in Madison Square Garden with everything on him. And he talks about that, too. He says, it was on me. I was the guy standing out front. We played the Smothers Brothers show, and John and Robbie and I just did finger syncing. We had a track, pre-recorded track of the song Touch Me without the vocals. Jim had to go on national television and sing his butt off live and be sexy and charismatic and on pitch Whereas the rest of us are in the background going, you know, nothing's happening. I mean, I could We had the Smothers Brothers Orchestra on stage with us. They were jiving. There's a whole bunch of people goofing off, just having a grand time on national TV, and Morrison carrying that weight.
Oh, and he feels that in this book, you get the sense that that burden is what kills him.
Ultimately, that's what made him start drinking. That's what the alcohol assuaged. You know, it got rid of that burden of carrying that weight. I mean, who got arrested in Miami? I didn't get arrested in Miami. John and Robbie didn't get arrested. Grab Jim Morrison. You know, and I should have been arrested for playing the riot. I mean, the stage was collapsing. There are people, and Jim's been thrown into the audience. A snake dance is going on. People are charging the stage. It's Miami. It's hot. It's sweaty. Cops everywhere. Strange things happening. It's a riot is going on. John and Robbie left the stage, and I said, well, I can't leave the stage. Somebody's got to score the riot. If there's going to be a riot, you've got to have at least, so I'm smashing on the organ, the bass making just thunderous noise, turn the amps up. I mean, I should have been arrested for talk about inciting a riot or disturbing the peace, and get the keyboard player too. He's guilty as the poet is, for God's sake. But they never get the musicians. Jim had to carry all of that weight.
You know, cool. That's a song in there, isn't it? But that's
yeah, right. Well, so did the band. Huh?
Yeah. You know, you are notorious, the band, as being counterculture to some extent, as far as the image that we have. Yet, when I read this book, there is a tremendous, I don't know how to put this. I don't want to put you in a bad light, so if I am, you let me know. But there's a tremendous patriotic Americanism that I get a sense out of when I read this. And I don't mean like a nationalism like, what would be the word? You know, where America love it or leave it. Jingoistic.
No,
I don't mean
America
that.
Love it or leave it, or my country, right
exactly.
or wrong.
It's nothing like that. But yet there is this element in here where the whole quest, in a sense, is if you're able to bring back Jim and do this again, it's to shed a new American vision, a new light. And you actually leave us with this term that Jefferson said, and I thought this was something that the audience has to know. Jefferson said, I am a warrior so that my son could be a farmer, so that my grandson could be a poet, an artist. And there was something, I don't know, it just rang a patriotic bell in the most positive sense to me. And I got a sense that that's what you actually wanted it to do.
This is our country. This is a great country. It's the only country, well, we started it anyway, it's the only country where democracy, you vote for the people to represent you in that form of government that we have. It's a country that accepts all races, all religions. We are the Aquarian Age country. We haven't even stepped into the Aquarian Age yet. We haven't even begun to fulfill our destiny, and our destiny of America is the destiny of a country in which people can actually live together in harmony. You know, live side by side in harmony. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what race you are, what religion you are. Let's live together in harmony and love and peace. Morrison was an American. He loved America. He said, I'm an American first and foremost. We might have been counterculture. We were counter the war in Vietnam, and we still are. We're counter the despoiling of the ecology of the planet, the ruining of the water. Let's get some salmon, the Pacific salmon, coming back into the California streams. There was actually a salmon was sighted in the Hudson River in New York.
But you know, there was a lot of activism in that Hudson River. There
Yes,
was a lot of,
wasn't there?
Who were some great musicians, in fact. I can't
Pete
remember.
Seeger.
Pete Seeger,
Yeah.
that's who it was.
Yeah,
He was
of
involved.
course.
I was on that boat, in fact,
There
at
you
one
go.
time.
There
That
you go.
still floats up there.
There
A
you
lot
go.
of work was done,
Yeah.
and you can see the difference of that. And you know, part of this quest is to bring, because this is a quest. This book is about a quest. It is fictional, but it's about a quest, and
Well,
it's a
my
quest that's real.
to find Jim.
Okay.
Then it's Jim's quest to find the story that the poet then tells is the story of his adulthood, his manhood, his enlightenment, ultimately his search for nirvana, for Satori.
I think you used the Van Morrison's word, back to the mystic.
Yeah.
It's that mystic
Exactly.
that gives you that peace, that sense of serenity, that sense that wherever I am, that's where I am.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that sense of peace, that living in the moment. You actually even said what amazed you most sometimes was that Jim was able to be, or Jay, and excuse
You
me
can
for
call him Jim, it's all
was
right.
was able to now finally be in that moment, not just write the words and the poetry of it, but felt that he was there at that time.
And settle into it.
Yeah.
It's a Zen state, too. It's very Zen. It's that be here now. Be here now. This is a moment, even as we're sharing, a moment of just totally ephemeral. It'll come, you'll watch it on TV, and it'll be gone, and yet it's an infinite moment because we are ultimately that infinity, you know, that Einstein, that Einsteinian infinity. We are that, and it's divine, and it's good. Feels real good, too.
And you
That's the best part.
Well, you know what the best part is, too, is when you read it, you can't help but feel good, too.
Good.
That's what I was saying before. You did this to us in Light My Fire. You seem to be able to, and I can't even find the right words. I have hundreds of authors on this show, and it rarely happens that you feel you're physically there. And that's why I had to ask you. It seems, as fictional as you know it is, you have this little weird knack, and I don't know. That's why I said I thought the poet was you, because you have this knack of putting us there. I don't know how you do it, but you do.
Well, it might have something to do with going to film school, for one. Jim and I were students at UCLA, and the idea of writing film scripts and translating those, your ideas onto a screen. What I do when I write is I see those scenes taking place, and I write them down as fast as I possibly can. But then you hypnotize yourself, too, because I write in the morning, 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning for a couple of hours. I'm sitting with Jim Morrison having a planter's punch at a bar.
Oh, and you feel that? That's what I'm
Somerset
saying.
Mall
You
bar.
feel it.
Well,
I see it.
I was there, Barry.
That's what I'm telling you. I had to go back and I had to say, I swear, because you were there. And I knew that when I read it. I knew that whether you were there or not physically there, you were there.
Yeah,
and that's what you feel when you read it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I
It was
see the
hot.
cigar and the brandy, too,
Yeah.
and I was going, oh, man, that looks so good right now. Why can't I be there with Ray and Jim with that cigar and brandy?
Oh, did we have a good time? I mean, I sat with my buddy, and he told me the rest of his life. He told me the next 30 years of his life, and it's a real adventure. It's not just, I did this with these girls and that, and, and somebody said to me, what is this, all this spiritual stuff? I thought he'd have, like, a girl actually said this to me. A woman said, I thought he'd have, like, 4 or 5 women he'd be living somewhere. I said, sorry, darling, this is a whole nother story.
You talk about women, and there's a great line. He's married now, as the story takes place. It's the Seychelles Islands?
Yes, Seychelles.
Seychelles Islands.
Seychelles, a very lovely Seychelles mixed-race woman.
And she is there, and she asks you, she says, Roy, how do you look? And now it is Roy in the book, so I don't want people to think I don't know your name. Ray, how do you look so good? And your words were, I exercise, I eat right, and I love my wife. And both of our wives we met when years ago when you did Light My Fire. We're both of them sitting there watching this thing go on. There is something about those 3 elements. And I think everyone would say right off the bat, well, sure, if you exercise and eat right, but love my wife. And this is something that even Jim has got this experience so that the 3 of us now can share how important that is.
Well, you're only half a human being, You're a human being, but you're only half the show, In the Kabbalah, in the Sephiroth, there's the Kether at the top, and it divides itself immediately. The first thing is male and female. It's the one divides into 2. Now, when you find your other half as a woman, or you find a man, that's bringing you back up to the crown chakra, to the Kether, to the very top of the Sephiroth. So you complete yourself by finding a good woman to love, and it's real nice.
In fact, part of Jim's problem is a shame.
Yeah.
A shame that he may not even be heterosexual. This is kind of now we know he is, and when you write about it, he is, but he's suffering from this shame. Part of it is not finding that other half of his soul.
Exactly. Sure, I mean, well, I think every man, or certainly every artist at some point or another, has a confrontation with their own homosexuality. Am I or am I not? Because you embrace the feminine side. To become an artist, you have to embrace the feminine side within yourself. And with that feminine side comes a certain softness, a lightness, a delicacy, and you begin to wonder, am I attracted to men? And for Jim, it was like, why am I so pretty? Look how pretty I am. No, Jim was a great-looking guy. He was really a fabulous-looking guy. So the idea of homosexuality occurs to, I think, to every artist, and Morrison talks about it, or the poet talks about his, his concern with it.
Now, one thing about the search that's interesting is when this whole search is going on for both of you. May I quote you? It's your words. You are still my poet, whether I don't know Jim, I know you. The search brought him back to where he started, to the man I always was, who I hadn't yet known.
Exactly. Well, it's in you. It's in you. You just have to discover it, That's the hard part. You have to find the discovery. Isn't it said that we know everything in the womb and immediately forget it at the moment of birth? All knowledge in that womb is ours. Certainly all feeling. I mean, what could be a more divine feeling than just floating in the amniotic fluid of your mother, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. But we forget as soon as we're born. Then we spend the rest of our lives trying to recapture that security. And we can recapture that security. In that security is our manhood. We discover our manhood, our womanhood, our adulthood is what we have to become.
It's funny, if there's anything, and I know this got you mad even, when originally when Oliver Stone wrote the biography on you guys, the film biography, I remember this getting you mad, and I remember it getting me mad because it is portrayed that there was a pessimism for some reason in this cultural change that was going on. And you so eloquently always bring that out. No, this isn't pessimism. It is only via this optimism. And Jim mentions this about you in the book over and over again. But people don't realize that it was the optimism that drove you. It was not the pessimism. It wasn't the state of affairs looking so bleak that drove you guys. It was the state of affairs that could be.
That can be, what we can be as human beings, what we can be as America. What did Kennedy say? Didn't Kennedy say, that's not what your country can do for you? What can you do for your country? Let's take it up to that next level.
The music with the poetry, that's the root, because it seems that that is what penetrates everyone, more so than the philosophy. The philosophy you have to spend the time to read, absorb, do.
Right.
But the music and the poetry, that can hit right there.
Where does it go? What is that music? You plunk a guitar string. You know what that string does? It's vibrating.
Yeah.
That stuff just comes right in here.
I remember having, talk about a cigar and cognac. I remember just being blessed with having a cigar and cognac with two people that were very interesting. Wolfman Jack, remember Wolf?
Of course.
And Jeff Skunk Baxter.
Oh, yeah.
You know Jeff
Sure,
Skunk, a famous
sure.
musician,
Jeff,
Doobie Brothers.
Yeah, right.
He said literally just that. He said to me, when you pluck a certain chord, they could physically measure the difference in stress levels on your body.
Yeah.
They could actually, and you with that organ and that keyboard, that's what made that Doors music. They'd hear that keyboard, and you felt it right in there, vibrating physically, not just emotionally.
No, absolutely. And then there was people said, why didn't the Doors have a bass player? And I said, they did have a bass player.
Oh, yeah,
Here he is, Lefty.
that's right.
Lefty's the bass player. He's a good, solid, steady fellow. He's not incredibly bright. He's not ambitious, but he's very steady and very solid. So, that Light My Fire, boom, 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 A minor to B minor, dun, dun, dun. He just plays that. He loves to play that. While Righty does all the little Bach filigrees and whatnot. But that's where that Doors hypnotic sound comes from. Over and over and over and over, and ding, 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 ding. Robbie's hitting his guitar notes, and I'm playing this. Densmore's whacking on 2 and 4. Jim's singing over the top of it, and it just keeps pulsing. It's hypnotic. It's very primitive. It's very African.
You discuss a few reasons, and we mentioned some of it, what was destroying Jim on the inside, even while all of this was going on. But as I said, all with a positive light. But there's an element there that you bring out that I feel so important, and I want to overemphasize it. And you talk about the role of a father, because you say in the book, one of the things was that there was a void in Jim's life without this fatherhood and this hug. And literally, there was another character, I believe it was a manager of yours.
Later on in the
later
book,
on,
exactly,
also
with a drug addiction.
Again, and heroin was, as you said, their missing father. It gave them the warmth of a father's hug.
Yeah.
Where the mother gives you the nurturing, the father is there to protect you.
Right.
And that element of hug and protection is something that was very enlightening as you brought it out, and you seem to show the effect negatively when it's not there and positively when it's there.
The father is your hero. He's your champion. He will defend you against the bullies, bears, lions, and tigers, whatever are coming. He will defend you. Your mother, as you say, nurtures you, feeds you, and tucks you in. But Dad hugs you, and the hug is, again, right where the music goes, right where the energy of the music goes. You hug a person, and you're holding heart to heart. It's the heart chakra, as it's called, the chakra to chakra, heart energy to heart energy. That's where the warmth comes from. And if you don't have that, if your father's an absentee father, Denny Sullivan in the book, Jim's father was an admiral away, a captain on the ship, away all the time. You lack that warmth right in the basic heart chakra, and that's exactly what heroin fills. All junkies will tell you that they spend the rest of their lives, the rest of their addictive lives, chasing that first high. It's never as good as that time.
And you know something? In a sense, Jim is chasing that first high when he's in that water. Isn't that what's going on? That's right. That's what the search is.
He has the epiphany in the ocean, drunk as a skunk, hangover, and just flops into the ocean one morning and has an epiphany in the ocean after 5 solid years of drinking.
See, it's not me. It's you. I just realize it. We're talking about it as if it's actually happened as well, and this is fiction. That's what I'm saying when you read you're telling me Jim didn't stop drinking, he was dead beforehand, but you see what's happening? Whoa. You do this, am I right? This is what you do. And I'm sitting there going, and I'm thinking, boy, how did he find, and I'm realizing it's just make-believe, and you get caught up in it. That's how you do it.
No, he fell into the ocean, I'm telling you, Barry, he did. And he was swimming in the ocean, and he felt the ocean and the water and the oneness in him.
Oh, but that's it. That's
and then he rolled on his back, and he looked up into the sky, and the sky was just blue, and the sun was golden, and he just left his body and went into it. He just left his body. He had an out-of-body experience.
Oh, Ray, you know, you do it to me all the time. I'm going to end on this note. You say how quickly life moves when you finally become aware of its sweetness. You make it so sweet,
Thank you, Barry.
buddy. Hang out here. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for joining us. If you'd like to comment about our show or just care to get in touch with me, you may do so by email at bookshow@aol.com or write us at Between the Lines, KLCS TV, 1061 West Temple Street, LA 90012. Now, before we go, I'd like to leave you with these words by Ray Manzarek from The Poet in Exile. All we have to do is open up to the beauty of the world, to break out of our shells, our egos, to go beyond the you and the me. I'm Barry Kibrick. As a great poet once said, break on through to the other side. Read between the lines. Thank you, Ray.
Very cool, man. Thank you.